Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Phil from Radio.co, and welcome to this latest Radio.co webinar. If you don't know me already, you've never chatted to me or never seen any of these videos before, I'm Phil, as I say, and I'm the Customer Success Manager at Radio.co. And how I spend pretty much all day, every day, really, doing on a weekly basis is just talking to people like you, interested in launching a very own online radio station. And I like to chat with you, give you guidance on how to get started, and just show you exactly just how easy it is to launch your very own online radio station, preferably using our Radio.co platform. That's no different today. I'm going to be guiding you through the Radio.co platform, showing you how it all works, all the bits and bobs, all some useful information, answering some questions that you want to send as well. But on this occasion, I'm actually not on my own. So usually it's just me droning on for 60 plus minutes or so chatting about this. But no, I've got the great pleasure of sort of chatting alongside someone who I'm pretty sure you won't be ashamed of me saying or shy me saying that probably about 20 years ago, for some reason, I was just filled with such unquestionable, unrivaled rage. Not for him, the person, him, the character, I'm sure he'll understand. But no, it's been a pleasure to introduce alongside me, who's become quite a good, very fast friend, Mr. Stevie Richards. Thank you, Stevie, for joining me today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm still sweating from my afternoon workout. I kind of rushed in last minute, fashionably 1 minute before we were scheduled. But I was just about to say, we have become very much friends over the past, since November 2021. It's been a pleasure to get to know you. And in retrospect, looking back, get to know you as I got to know the Radio.co family, product, service, all the above.
Yeah, and like I said, it's we've been sort of get to know each other about obviously hearing about your passion for broadcasting and your hunger to sort of getting more involved in broadcasting and radio specifically. But kind of before we jump into that nitty gritty, Steve, the best way is kind of just giving a bit of a rundown on I guess in the most blunt way who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Stevie Richards. Real name is Michael Manna. You can find that on Wikipedia with probably other inaccurate information, but the accurate part is my real name. And I've always had since I was in high school, I always had a love for broadcast radio, for those voices. And especially when I traveled through my 30-year career, 20 years full-time on TV, there's a lot of late nights, there's a lot of driving. And this is before iPods. This is early stage of iPods, before satellite radio, when you literally had to find terrestrial radio stations. And late at night, one of my favorite radio shows, which I've actually dipped in and out of trying to be that type of radio show, we'll get to that later, is Coast to Coast AM. And I don't know over there in England and Europe if you guys had ever gotten Art Bell, George Norrie, just these real mythical type of imaginary shows about UFOs and monsters and other stuff. It was really quite cool. And also on the other end too, listening to ESPN, Fox Sports, NFL Network Radio over the years, just, listening to places where people can actually have a voice, where you can just kind of sit back. We have video today, but you can sit back with no video, drink, kind of work a mixing board. We'll get to what I have a little bit later. But it's just a fun little creative venture where it's almost like your inner voice talking out to other people as you're thinking through things. That's the way I've always seen radio.
Yeah, and I guess obviously driving around sort of all over the country and all over the world is I guess sort of during the wrestling career did your appreciation, I guess, or your like a new interest in radio kind of grow, I guess the more you were listening to it potentially.
Yeah, I mean, it also was this, like being in any entertainment and sport, especially sports, because your body is eventually going to turn on you and tell you, to use a wrestling term, your body's going to turn on you and tell you, hey, listen, you might be able to wrestle this match, but it's going to take you 2, 3, 4 times longer to recover from said match. And I've always been of the mindset of what career can be post wrestling, where I can still kind of perform. I can still kind of cut promos, as we say, or talk, do our monologues in a way where I could be the real me, not a character on TV, and also do that, God willing, until the day I'm gone. Like you can't age out of radio from what I've seen with most big personalities.
Yeah, and obviously you said like your initial love for broadcasting came from growing up, very very young. Was radio or broadcasting always in the back of your mind? Like it was always going to be something you'd like to do when sort of the wrestling boots came off?
Well, are you ready for me to completely ruin any kind of tough guy image that anybody would think about pro wrestlers? I mean, if you look at me, you might have already killed it. But if you're listening to my voice right now, you know very well, and also our friend Billy Ray Valentine, who's going to be starting up a station with Radio.co in the next couple of months. I, being from Philadelphia, we had Delilah at night, the 80s love songs, radio stations. And besides, I tried to be cool in the beginning and talk about the mythical and the sports. But deep down, I want to do an 80s love song station too. And the licensing just won't allow it, right? It's too damn complicated. But TV is TV. But like I said, being on TV for so many years, it's sort of like when you buy a bunch of studio equipment and then you start to kind of like bring it into one converged, minimalistic, what works for you at the minimum level. And going from TV and then back into my love for radio, or you can call it podcasting, but I like the intimacy of live radio too. So that's another thing I like. It helps you relax, because when you have a camera on you, no matter who you are, you don't feel as much at ease. You feel a little nervous, and you also feel like you have to project or perform. Do you ever feel like that? And radio kind of takes that away. Takes the edge off, sort of.
Yeah, I remember you saying in one of our sort of first conversations that, despite being on TV, for 30 odd years, sort of any sort of like camera work or presenting work, it's, it still brings you, about your nerves. That's still the case.
Yeah. I worked out.
So I guess obviously for people sort of unaware of, the, I guess sort of the name of Stevie Richards. I mean, what's, give, I guess, kind of a crash course in the career really sort of leading up to here.
Well, most important part, skinny kid from Philadelphia, which at 50 years old, I'm still that skinny kid that I always was. Would have loved for doing things that people told me I couldn't do. That's where my saying throughout the WWE, "I'll show you, you'll see," which I really do recommend everybody lives by, because don't let anybody tell you you can never achieve your dreams, because if somebody like me can do it, really anybody can do it, whether it's radio station, wrestler, whatever you want to do. But I grew up in Philadelphia, and I started in the original ECW, which was Eastern Championship Wrestling, then converted over to what most people know if you watch the WWE Network or if you've been there, Extreme Championship Wrestling. Made a name for myself there. Went to WCW for a very short time with Raven, then went to WWE in 1999, stayed there for about 10 years. Some say too long. 10 years. Managed to adapt to whatever was going on. And I lasted a great deal of time there, both in on-screen roles and off-screen roles, scouting and developing and working with new talent. Some guys which you see on TV today, like Randy Orton, John Cena, Batista was on TV, Brock Lesnar, Shelton Benjamin, the whole crop of guys that have been on television for the past, say, 10 years full time. I had a hand in, they did all the work. I had a hand in just helping them get down that highway a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
So from there, I worked for companies like Ring of Honor, worked for TNA for a couple of years under Dr. Stevie, was blessed to work all over the world, been to your country, been to Germany, been to Scotland. It was a great life and a great career that actually was a great launching pad to give me work ethic and perspective, more importantly, on whatever business or career that I choose from that point on. And even though I say, I'm retired, I would still do stuff here and there for certain charities or certain fundraising events to lend my name out to help people, that I can, that are, don't have the opportunities that I had.
Yeah, and obviously, and I know that the passion for broadcasting has always been there. But what kind of, did something happen, or what's kind of led you to be more of a broadcaster these days? Was there anything while you were sort of mid wrestling that made you sort of think about doing broadcasting a bit more seriously?
I always have been against the grains. That's what made my wrestling career, I think, stand out and be unique. I was always not afraid to do the stuff that people were afraid to do for their egos, or, I mean, I wore a half shirt and Daisy Dukes for goodness sake. So I would always do the things or be willing to put myself in spots or take roles that people would usually scoff at because of their ego or they didn't want to show their vulnerability, which I'll do anyway because I might as well. I don't have a very good, I'm just one of those people that I've been Michael Manna, which was my real name throughout pretty much my whole wrestling career, but it's in different parts of my personality and beliefs in these characters. But going back to the radio stuff, everyone has a YouTube channel. Everybody is on video. Everybody's upgrading their video equipment. Everybody wants better lighting, all this stuff and that. I want to go the opposite way because I feel like what's old is new again. So the medium of what's considered to be radio doesn't have as much saturation as the other things. So maybe you have tell me if I'm thinking wrong about this. Do you have a chance of standing out and being unique when you have a radio station where you can have your show and then have like-minded people or people with opposing views or opposing ideas in your lineup, and now you have essentially your own brand within that? So that's the way I look at it. I mean, people might say, well, radio is podcasting now, but no, you can offer the live thing and then the workflow, in my opinion, the podcast comes afterwards on demand. But if you can offer, and this is where you probably could help me out, if you can offer some sort of thing where people feel like they're the fear of missing out on that live show, or it's a giveaway, whether it's a special thing or just radio only, we're not going to air this on the podcast. These are things I think that make it a real attractive model.
Yeah, and to be honest, a growing trend, particularly over the last sort of 12 months, where Radio.co is concerned, is a lot of people are realizing that there are a lot of podcasters. Every man and his dog, is launching a podcast these days. So, but the idea of, well, no one's doing radio anymore. Well, surely there's going to be a new audience for that. Surely there's going to be like-minded people. So it's definitely agree with you there that the old is now becoming new again, and a lot of people are creating their own online radio stations to stand out, which, sounds bizarre if you were speaking to someone, 5-10 years ago. But there is, definite difference in preference over radio and podcasting. Podcasting is, I guess, more on demand, whereas you've got, live radio, the idea of, as you say, not missing out on a program. You've got to go and listen to that. Or, when people ask, well, why would I listen to radio over Spotify? And it's like, well, Spotify, you've got to spend a bit of time deciding what you want. Radio, it's a bit more personal. It's music that you feel is tailored to you, as someone's offered it to you, and it's a much more intimate experience, I think, with radio. And I think that's why it's seen a bit of a huge resurgence over the last sort of few years or so.
I agree with that. And also, somebody's asking, I got a WH in the chat, asked what mic are you using? Mic I used to have, and the mic I'll probably end up getting again. I'm on a 416 from Sennheiser. You're on the classic SM7B. And, just the sister broadcasting mic is the RE20, obviously. Neil asked if I'm DJing a show or managing a radio station. I'm not quite up to the steps yet. I'm probably, because my friend Billy Ray Valentine is going to jump through all the immense hoops to get the radio license, or the music license, I should say. I will be DJing an 80s love song show on his, but we're also thinking about myself with either one of the lower tier, smaller radio stations with myself doing a couple different shows, whether it be health, fitness, nutrition, stuff like that, or even just something where I'm doing whatever, kind of a potpourri of stuff. I meant to ask you a question, and this is my question to you.
Yeah.
Do you see, because obviously you can't escape it anywhere in the world today, when you have content where you're speaking and you give whatever your viewpoint is, or you're looking at current trends, does Radio.co have any sort of, I guess, immunity or any sort of Kevlar protection in a way for people to speak? Because there seems to be a lot of censorship around YouTube, Apple, Spotify, other places. And I'm not talking about, obviously, if people say stuff that's completely overboard. What I'm saying is, I say, oh, well, you can get vitamin D by going out in the sun. And, I still recommend you take vitamin D, but somebody say, oh my God, he's talking like a crazy person. You know what I mean? Do you have any sort of pressure with the company from those kinds of voices?
No, I mean we have obviously as we are a software provider, we do have terms that ideally we'd like people to follow. It's the thing with online radio in general is because there are no per se regulatory bodies overseeing it. Like in the UK, we have like Ofcom. In the US, FCC. We don't. There is no regulatory body over internet radio, so you are ultimately allowed to kind of say and do what you want within reason. It's a pretty lawless field. We as a company have terms that we would like you to follow. Nothing, outrageously, as you say, intentionally offensive or disrespectful. But generally, if you want to talk about one topic, you can. If you then want to go and swing in and play your strange collection music and then go and talk about something else pretty far-fetched, there's freedom there, but then there is an idea
you'll get in more trouble for the music licensing than the conspiracy theories, right?
Yeah. That's people can believe whatever you want, but then if you're playing a song by Katy Perry and you shouldn't be, they'll come down on you hard.
I don't know if anybody should do that though.
Play Katy Perry?
Exactly. We don't need that kind of torture in our lives.
No.
But I'm sure they feel that way about the 80s love songs too. So we'll see. We have some former co-hosts in the public chat room. Great guy Papadon. We used to co-host the Conspiracy Horsemen together. Myself, Ben Hameen, Sal, Big Sal. So a lot of support in here from my friends.
Awesome. And obviously in regards to obviously broadcasting in general, we're talking a lot about radio, but you are obviously very heavily involved in sort of podcasting. So what sort of other sort of projects do you have going on at the moment?
Well, my main thing right now is what we initially were talking about, and that was with Vince Russo. Vince Russo has about, at this time, maybe 10, 12 shows on Russo brand channel Attitude. And we were thinking, because he has a paywall with subscription tiers and stuff like that, of utilizing Radio.co with the internet radio for, number one, some free tier shows that are front facing on the main website, really right below the login or above the login. So if you wanted to sign up, there would be some sort of call to action on that. And also giving people who do subscribe and pay a premium that live radio lineup and then some on demand. So even though you may put it in an RSS and you may miss it also at 9 a.m., say, or when we record it live at 11 a.m. Eastern time, there's going to be a replay at 6 p.m. Eastern time, for example. So you get a 24-hour radio station. And then from a business standpoint, this is me speaking for myself. The way I saw it was that if certain shows wanted to cut their teeth and we could see if they were going to be consistent through 10, 15, 20 episodes, they would be on the free tier. And then when the value grew for their brand and we knew, it's easy. What's it called? Podcast fade, where after 10, 20 episodes, you kind of give up. Those are usually people that spend $1,000 in the front end too. Yeah. You give up. And that would be, whether you're doing Radio.co or anything else, I would say buy the least expensive stuff and make sure that you're going to give the content over a consistent amount of time. So that's why my pie in the sky theory, and that's what we had contacted you. And, wrestling, we talk about it too, being former wrestlers, and just a little bit of an off-track comment. We talk a lot as wrestlers and we get jaded a little bit because we're right in there, just like football players, actors, entertainers. But it's really a blessing that somebody that remembers me, I can say it, I won't be offended, remembers me when they were growing up as a kid, maybe as a little baby, you watched it 1 year old or whatever, you look a lot younger than I do. But these people I get to interact with on a business level, like you and a lot of other people with health and fitness, look at me and say, hey, I grew up watching you. And now we get to be like collaborators together. We need to get to have the business collaboration and we get to work together. That makes the 30 years of wrestling really cool, because it feels like that 30 years is going to build up relationships for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, just like, it's things, when inquiries come through, sometimes you take notice of particular email addresses. Yours sprung up and I was like, it can't be, can it? It can't be. And then lo and behold, it certainly was. Couldn't believe it.
And I can communicate with you people, you and other people overseas, because I work out at like 3 or 4 in the morning. So I'm sending these emails out at like 5:15 after my workout.
That's it. And I never need to worry about waking you up if I'm sending, a thought or just a gesture, because you're guaranteed to be up doing something anyway.
I do sleep sometimes, trust me. My wife doesn't think so.
And kind of the last thing before we jump into kind of the platform in general, I guess it'd be great to hear. Obviously, we've heard about current things that you were listening to sort of growing up, but what sort of, I guess, what radio shows, stations, podcasts do you sort of typically listen to these days, or are a big fan for currently?
My favorite show, and it's been that way since I was in WWE. One of the favorite shows that I have is No Agenda Podcast, with the first podcaster, the Podfather, Adam Curry, John C. Dvorak, which I used to have a tech channel on YouTube. That's what the YouTube channel was, a tech channel, which gave me the foundation for being able to be a one-man show. So I gravitated to them. I've been listening to them for many years. Also, obviously Rogan and other things. But those things kind of take a back. I can always listen to them on demand and catch up. My real project right now is trying to find the best one-person podcasts or radio shows. Like the sports are famous for that because you can sit there and talk, and very little interviews, just kind of analysis and hot takes and stuff. But those are the ones I'm looking at to see, because we all doubt ourselves, Phil. So I'm sitting there and I tell my wife all the time, I don't know if I can carry an entire radio show or a podcast or any content on my own. I don't know if I can sit here and tend to talk in a coherent way that makes sense over time. And if I could even produce it, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of doubt within that, but those are the ones that I look for now. And they're mostly sports shows, like Colin Cowherd, other people, the pacing, the way they talk. I don't know why with unlimited bandwidth and storage and almost unlimited airtime on Radio.co that I feel like I need to rush. Like I'm right now, I'm like, oh my God, maybe it's the wrestler in me. Somebody's counting me down in my mind.
Making sure you hit all the spots and all the fill in all the spots.
There's no spots right now. We're just talking. That's the cry. Listen, wrestlers are insane. So once you get past that, you'll be fine.
Cool. Like sort of kind of leading on from that, talking about, I guess, making sure things run smoothly, and can you indeed put together, produce, and manage a radio station? It kind of leads a nice little segue onto the actual sort of Radio.co platform. So what I'm going to do now is, obviously, is Stevie, you'll join me here, is kind of just give you a kind of a whirlwind tour of how Radio.co, I say whirlwind, it's going to be a pretty steady, comfortable whirlwind ride, but kind of just showing you
there for a second. It was a little scary. You slow it down.
Like I'm thinking about you just rushing all the time.
You can't move. You move too quick, I could blow a knee out or throw my back out. I was going to say though, this is great, because what we're going to try to do, if I can pick it up where you're putting it down, we're going to do and kind of simulate, since I have a little bit of experience but not much, like onboarding a new customer.
Yeah. Yeah. So the idea is you have a very sort of vague understanding of what we offer. And the idea is it's going to a little bit of hand holding, show you how you can upload content, build shows, how you schedule them. But all the role sort of, I guess, Stevie's playing here is kind of like you. He's going to be asking sort of relevant questions that come to mind, concerns that might spring up, but really just a way just to see how it all works, and to get a good understanding of how quick and easy you can actually sort of get up and running. So I should have my screen up and running. There we go. Thank you very much, Rowan.
I do want to say this really quick. You need to tell James to stop showing off all the cool stuff he gets like a couple times a week on YouTube. Starting to really irk me, and I got a little bit of tech envy with him. He needs to stop it. The studio looks incredible, by the way. Really jealous of that. So get off YouTube, James.
That's it. I mean, I chip in occasionally. I actually sort of filmed a review for something yesterday. It's under embargo, so I can't sort of go through it right now. But it's a pretty cool bit of kit anyway. But more on that sort of towards the end of the month. But yeah, just say so. Rowan in the background, obviously, he's kind of mixing our screens around, so you can obviously see and hear me and Stevie and the screen. But he's also feeding in some questions. So please, if you have any questions, whether it's about the fears of launching your own online radio station, questions about how Radio.co works, questions for Stevie, please fire anything across wherever you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, I believe as well. Just wherever you are, put your questions in, and what we'll do is we'll go through some of them at the end. If any catch our eyes, we'll shout them out. But message them in, and Rowan will feed them through, and we'll go through as many as we can towards the end. Cool. Okay, so let me just jump on the screen there. So so what we have here is the Radio.co dashboard, Stevie. So this is kind of just a general overview of what the station is really doing. So obviously, when you create your 80s love song, would it be an 80s love song themed station, or is it just specifically a show that you're more passionate about?
I think it would for music, it would be 80s love songs. That would be my I had to I got outsmarted. I thought if the music was 40 years old or 35, I could get away without the music license, but I was wrong. They'll get you. They're like it's something they're renewed again for another 76 years or something, some weird thing. I'm up for I just remember that the 80s love songs used to be a big part of my teenage angst and being awkward and not at all able to talk to women or girls or anything. So I became Stevie Richards. I did something completely goofy. I said, I can't talk to people. And I'm an introvert. So let me go be a professional wrestler and wrestle in front of 10,000 people every night. That wasn't a good thing. And I'm afraid of flying. So that was not
awesome. Great. We said about like 80s love songs, kind of like about the same time, like 20 years ago stuff. I was, as a young child, really shouldn't be playing anything like this, but exposed to Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and that was full of 80s love songs. So my huge passion for 80s music going forward, and things like synthwave and retro waves based off a lot of 80s music, still sort of with me today. So I'm very, very much on board with the 80s love.
You know what else is a great genre of music, and I just think about it when I think about Philly, where I'm from, is 50s doo-wop music. That's some good music. I don't know if you ever heard that.
Is it? I mean, do you
Like
reckon that does come under a license? Maybe you could play that. That's what, 70 years ago. Maybe you could play some of that.
They'll still get me.
It's all a myth. It's like when people say, oh, you can use 10 seconds or 30 seconds of a music track and you won't get pulled up. No, it's a myth. It's a myth. Don't believe that. But yeah, as you can see, so what you do is this is your Radio.co platform, and this is just showing you what your station is doing. And the most important thing, of course, is the on-air button here. The platform, Stevie, it's all cloud-based. So for you, it means, unlike if you were to go and work in a terrestrial station, you'll see a computer on 24/7, keeping the station alive. We do that for you, so there's no need to run that electricity bill all day, every day, because you only need to be logged in if you're doing one of your live shows or you wanted to upload a couple of tracks. But speaking of, anyway, all you do is to upload some content. You come to the media tab here, click on the add media button, and just here, upload as many tracks as you like, MP3 tracks or AAC. And you can upload anything you like. So you could upload, just all, hundreds or thousands of, 80s love songs, or any podcast episodes you've done, any interviews, create your own jingles and ads. Basically, what Radio.co is in a nutshell is what we like to say is a radio station in a box, an imaginary box, of course, because it's software. But you create an account with us, and you've got all the tools here to schedule, automate, broadcast, and ultimately you just want to upload content to the station, to your account, and it's all there lying in waiting for you to create your shows. A couple of the features before I show you how to create your own playlist is we have live recording. So obviously mentioning a lot about the benefit and the power of podcasting. It's really great for broadcasters, again, sort of like you, Stevie, is podcasting is great. A lot of people always struggle to decide whether a podcast or a radio station is best for them. My advice is to consider doing both, because they do hugely complement each other. Of course, with a podcast, it's strictly talk-based, so you won't have any luck sort of uploading an episode that contains music to Spotify. They'll strip that down quicker than you can say my new episode's live. But also with radio, of course, it, I guess, arguably has a bit of a more difficult reach to get, because people tend to go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. So what you should do is broadcast your live music and your live shows on air, but then repackage episodes and turn them into podcasts. And people who wouldn't have necessarily found your radio station originally are finding the podcast version of it, and then they'll follow you to listen to more shows. So yeah, rather than thinking about which one's best, it should be which one do I want to do first, essentially. And this particular tool is really good for that. So the live recordings feature allows you to schedule content to record. As soon as your show is finished, you'll find an MP3 file for it, and this MP3 file can be downloaded, to store on your computer and do what you will with it. We have a sister company, Podcast.co, so you could upload content directly there as well. And also great for on-demand content. I still class this software, this platform, as a bit of a grey area, but Mixcloud is still great for uploading music content to and making that available on demand. Or, of course, you could simply, as you mentioned earlier, have a recorded show on loop playing throughout the day, and you can place it into a playlist and do just that. Voice tracking is a great way to record content directly into Radio.co as well. So this allows you to record content up to 10 minutes. Perfect if obviously if you wanted to do, say, for example, I'm painting you out to be an 80s love song maniac, so I do apologize. But if you wanted all day, every day to be playing,
that's all.
if you wanted to be playing this content all day, every day, but of course you can't be broadcasting live all day, every day. So what you could do is build a playlist of some music, and instead of just leaving it as back-to-back music, record voice tracks instead. And you can then use them to, record your introductions to tracks, coming in, coming out. Just a great way of always being present without actually physically being present there in front of the computer. So voice tracking is a great way just to always keep your, your personality and your character alive throughout the station 24/7 or as much as you like. And then another tool we have, which is kind of linked to podcasting, is a tool that we call talk shows. This is particularly useful, for the likes of you and Vince Russo doing your shows. The talk show feature is a great way of recording remote discussions or podcasts, meetings, interviews. You basically create a chat room, an audio-based chat room, of course, similar to kind of like what we've got here, what we're using here. But you create a show. I've got one here called Phil Demo. It comes with an invitation link here. You email that to your guests, your co-hosts, and then they will then click on that and they'll be taken to a green room where they can obviously see the name of the show and check their mic levels. And then what you can do is then just click on Start Session, and you will then bring them into the room so you can check your mic levels and find out if everyone sounds okay, how you want them to. Click Record, and hey presto, you're recording a remote show. So this is a great, easy way of recording remote content. And you never know, you may want to just record a podcast using this way. Again, so this is kind of like a podcasting tool built into the platform. So it's something that you and obviously many others listening may find very, very useful too. But as for building shows,
I have a quick question about that.
Yes, please.
As far as audio quality, and obviously all this stuff is in the cloud, which is very convenient. Like you said, you don't have to leave a computer on, so there's power saving, all that stuff. And the uptime, you were shocked when I asked you how many nines of uptime do you have last. Remember that? You're like, what? So the uptime's very attractive too. But audio quality. Now, if you're doing this all in one loop, like I have the Rodecaster Pro. So if we're talking now, I can still record our audio onto the micro SD card or to any other recorder if you have an H6 or something like that. But what's the audio quality from a technical standpoint with that, talk show feature as opposed to just kind of uploading, from the SD card because we have all the processing built in the Rodecaster Pro.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple of different things in regards to streaming quality, bitrate within the platform. This particular feature, as is the same with the voice recording tool as well, and the actual live recording. All of these are by default, they are MP3, of course, and 128
cool.
kbps. So obviously, it's still classed as near. I think it's near CD quality. In HD, we have HD sound quality. That's usually between 128 and 192. So you're still getting a really crystal clear quality coming through. But your station stream can be a maximum of 320 if you have one of our higher end plans. So there's a lot of there's a big sort of spectrum there of what your station can stream at, but also what you can record at. And in comparison, obviously, because kbps bitrate, it might be sort of go over your head. It certainly did mine sort of before this role. But things like a lot of FM stations traditionally broadcast at 96, but you don't necessarily think they sound terrible, and it's maybe half the bit rate of what you could broadcast on here. So, even talk radio, old classic talk radio, is even less. DAB, which is considered, a revolutionary tool in radio. I mean, it's dying out a little bit, DAB, but the sound quality of that is less than an internet radio stream. So it's you may be able to broadcast higher, but the actual sort of quality that
So
you
you're
can
basically
stream
at
and
your
record is very good.
at your very worst, you're getting better than the radio show that you want to sound like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off at the end of that.
No, it's all right. No, that's very, very true. I said a lot of FM stations, they sound great. It's just they happen to be broadcasting at a lower bit rate. So it's something a lot of people ask me about. Do I need to worry, and do I need to broadcast at 320 kbps? Truth be told, I guess unless you were broadcasting a classical music station, you wouldn't really feel all the benefits of a 320 kbps stream. Music, intricate music like classical, where you want to hear everything, you want to hear the nuances and the real subtlety of everything, that's going to benefit from a higher bit rate. Everything else, especially talk content, really, really doesn't need to be broadcasting that high. But we give you the option to do that regardless. And so kind of going into sort of building a show here. So basically, any show that you're not doing live, Stevie, is going to be a playlist. So when you're broadcasting live, you really want to broadcast with content that you have stored on your device. So any music you want to play on your computer, with your Rodecaster Pro, if you want to connect a phone or a tablet that happens to have some music available on it, obviously connected by Bluetooth, you want it all to be available there. Any content that you're uploading should just be used for your automated and pre-recorded content. So you can see I've got a couple of example shows: breakfast show, classic rock show. We also have a default playlist. This is kind of like our secret tool in a way. If you want to put your station into automation, default playlist is a great way of doing it. This automatically fills in all the gaps for you. So if you were really restricted in the time and sometimes effort, like me, I'm as soon as I finish work, I'm putting my daughter to bed and sorting her out, and I'm wrecked by the time of that. So I don't have that much energy and effort to necessarily create a playlist for every single hour of every single day. Default playlist is a great way that it'll actually fill in all those gaps for you. So I have 52 tracks in there. They're just spinning on loop, and it's filling everything that we have there. So it means I've constantly got this 24-hour station without actually having to put a huge amount of time and effort into doing it. Of course, I still take tremendous pride in what I am playing, but if I just want a 24/7 station to at least get me to a good start while I spend time crafting it in the exact image I want it to be, the default place is a great way of doing that.
A question about that.
Yes.
So essentially what you can do, say that you can put in the default playlist, maybe even not your entire show on a loop, but if you have any voice tracking, like saying the song plays and then you say, hey, this is Phil at Radio.co, make sure to catch me here and at this on Instagram and blah, blah, blah. And you can put a file from the voice tracking or the recordings in there to fill that in on a loop. So you're kind of breaking it up so where you can do the radio station ID tags, you can do commercials for sponsorships, things like that.
Yeah, and it's kind of a good sort of trick that I do recommend to people. Some people like to purely have their radio station broadcasting just for a few hours a day. So there are some people who they only want to be on air between 9 and 9. For the rest of it, they want it off. We don't have like a way to automatically turn your station on and off. You have to do that manually. A great trick for that is to just give off the impression it's off air. And in doing that, you can actually kind of promote your station in a way. So what we do is you could, in your default playlist, just fill it with an MP3 track of silence. You could call that track something like, we'll be back on air at 9 a.m. That's playing consistently on loop for, through that 12-hour period overnight. But what it's doing is if anyone tries to click on your station, instead of clicking on it and it's saying it's not working, because that's what will pop up if your station is off air, what they're doing is they're listening technically to something, but instead it's just a message to say, we'll be back on air at 9 a.m. So that's a good way of giving off the impression your station is actually not broadcasting, but still notifying that, hey, nothing's playing, but, we'll be back at 9 to join us for 9 where it's back on. You can have artwork. If you've got a business who wants to advertise with you, have that track have the artwork of a local business, and then their imaging is broadcasting again
cool.
all throughout the night. So it's a good thing to use. It doesn't always have to be there to fill out content, which yes, you can fill it with all your voice tracks, your ads, all day, every day. There are some people who leave their schedules blank 24/7 and do exactly that. But you can also use it just to give off the impression your station is only broadcasting at a select time, which is arguably a good way of promoting your station in some cases. But what we'll do is we'll create our own show now. So, Stevie, obviously, main question here is obviously, of course, you've got the idea for your show. It's something you're very passionate about. You've been thinking about doing it for a while. All important question: do you have a name for it?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. That's why I'm here exactly. That's the only reason I came on here with you today, Phil, to help me out with that. How about we just do the Stevie Richard show? How's that? Because then
I mean, I came up with a decent name, particularly if it's to do with a lot of romantic music. I had the idea of calling it maybe Right to Sensual.
Right to Sensual?
Yeah.
Whew, that's a bad pun. If you keep putting that out there, it'll probably call me and want me to come back and cut my hair.
That's it.
You call it whatever you want. There you go.
There we go. The right
like
to
the
Sensual
OnlyFans account. That's what it looks like.
Cool. So we've got Right to Sensual.
Head up there for your next webinar and have somebody, have a female DJ on and see her. What is that? That's what she'll say.
Exactly. There we go. You don't need to know. It's fine. It's fine. It was Stevie's idea, all his.
And you pick blue for the reason of it's a different shade of blue, by the way. It's that darker blue. I know why you're picking blue.
There we go. Oh, it's a bit purpley there. We'll go for that one. I mean, the colour doesn't really matter. The colour's just a nice way of just to make it look pretty on the schedule. But there we go. So we've got Right to Sensual show here. And what you do is when you click on add, it then shows you obviously the name of your show. You can see the duration of the show. And of course, it's 0 because we actually haven't added anything to it. So what you want to do is any tracks you've uploaded are automatically available here in tracks. Anything you want, you can just click on this plus button here. And as soon as I do, it's jumping straight across into my playlist. Every track I'm adding, the duration is totaling up, so you know exactly how long this show is. Of course, I'm just working my way down this list, but if you have specific tracks you want, click on search and just type in something. I've got too many tracks to actually remember any outside of these ones I can see. But yeah, to type in the name of anything, and it will be available to move across. Of course, I don't just want music. I would like maybe some idents that I've got, maybe a news bulletin jingle, any voice tracks, any interviews, any commercials, literally anything you want to play, move it across. You know exactly what's playing, what order it's playing in, which you can obviously rearrange right here. And most importantly, you know exactly how long this particular show is going to be. Now, something I didn't actually show you before is we actually have a thing called a tagging system. And a tag is basically a way of adding a category to your track. So if I was to upload, 200 80s love songs, I could create a tag that says 80s love songs on it. Or maybe I've uploaded 200 80s love songs, but I kind of still want to separate them a bit more specific. So maybe there's a collection from a particular year of the 80s or a particular mood or tempo. So you can create these tags, and when you do, they'll all appear here. So I think I have an 80s one. There we go. So 80s here. So if I was to come here, I can take this tag, move it across. Maybe we've got a bit of blues as well. That's just a bit of blue for the dads. And then there we go here. So any tag that plays here, so this 80s tag is playing, the software will play a random track that's associated with that tag. That's the idea of it. So it's great for categorizing everything and being fully aware of how many 80 songs, how many blues songs have I got. But this can act as kind of like a random jukebox. So the software will just play out a random track. You can set it so it's not going to play the same artist too often or the same album too often. It's not going to repeat them either. It will play all of them within that category once before any play for a second time. So as long as I have at least 2 80s tracks, it's guaranteed to be different when it does play. If you wanted an entirely random show, you can even build a playlist that only contains tags. And in doing so, it will just simply play random tracks like this back to back for the entire duration of the show. So there's lots of different ways you can build this show out. If you have any recordings, so you would like to repeat one of your shows, you'll find them in the recordings tab here. Find the file that you want. Ideally, you've renamed it. I don't think anyone's interested in the timestamp of it, but that will play here. If you've used that talk show feature, that will be available here. Take that file, move it across. And then the voice tracking. So as I say, great way of just having your continuous presence available throughout the entire playlist. And you can do that by clicking on this microphone button here. Click on the red mic. Choose your input you're using. So in your case, Steve, if you've got your Rodecaster Pro hooked up, you would obviously select that. And that will actually allow you to record everything that's connected to that device. So even though this is, I guess, typically for vocal recordings, if you've got a music source connected or hooked up by Bluetooth to your Rodecaster Pro, you could still record music going through it. It will just record everything going through that device. Me personally, it's just recording this microphone. So if I click on the record button here, that's exactly what it's doing here. You can see my levels are going, it's counting back from 10, but it's a great way just to record, like I said, introductions to things, or a lot of people are using it to record their own jingles, their own commercials even. We're all listening to podcasts these days. You just see sometimes just a simple 2-minute long dry red ad talking about a business and a coupon code. And, this is a great way of doing it. You can just record something without having to go elsewhere, exporting it, uploading it, cut out all that faff. I don't know if faff is an American term. It's definitely here in the northern part of the UK, but it just cuts out a lot of that meddlesome unnecessariness. But yeah, what you do is you click on stop. You can listen back to it. You can remove it if you don't like it, and you can give it a name. So we'll just call this one Stevie Link 1. Click on create. Then allows you to save it and then move it wherever you want. So if I wanted it to introduce this song or just give a generic intro, or I wanted to record a new intro for context of this show that we've done, maybe it contains a particular interview or track that we're very proud of, just record a little context intro for it. It's a great little tool to use, and ultimately when you're finished, just click save. That all sort of making sense currently? Nice. Let's go to the schedule here. So scheduling, really, really simple. It's just a case of clicking on the time you want it to start, dragging it down to the time that you want it to finish. So you can see my schedule. I have a breakfast show 9 till 12, evening show 6 till 9, nothing in between. And, as we were discussing earlier, Stevie, this is where the default playlist would come in. Don't need to press anything. Don't need to set anything up. It's built it to do that. So all afternoon, it's got random content playing or a specific playlist order that I've made. And it's doing the same here between 9 and 9. That could be a default playlist that contains silence, and it's just telling people when we're next on air, or it could just be back-to-back music. It could just be me telling people, the show was great, you got to listen to it tomorrow, just constantly on loop. Get really annoying, but it's another use for it. But yeah, if you want to create a show, all you do is click on the time, drag it down to the time you want it to finish, 2 till 4, like that, for example. And then this is where you just confirm the details. So I'll just zoom in a little bit here. So when does it start and finish? So 2 till 4, perfect. That's what I wanted. What days of the week is it on? Do you see this being a regular reoccurring show, or just a kind of a once a week sort of show, Stevie?
It depends on how the music companies come after me.
Very underground in the middle of the night.
Yeah, obviously with a talk show, if it's sports related or, those kinds of events, it would probably be 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Because you're the sports, especially now with our football, American football is very much crazy right now with people moving and free agency. So yeah, I mean, I think usually most stations would talk Monday through Friday to some extent, like your breakfast show would be 5 days a week, right?
Yeah. So what you could do is, you can set it specific day. So maybe once a week. So say, for example, your show, Steve, it's going to be 80s love songs every Friday. In this example, every Friday afternoon. Hey, it's time for 80s love songs somewhere
Perfect
in the world.
time for romance.
So every Friday. I can repeat this booking, so I can actually have it scheduled across multiple days of the week if I wanted to. But at the moment, I just want it once a week. But I would like it every week for the next 2 years. Sounds extreme, but you can schedule it for up to 2 years. Just click on repeat every week and just put in a random date. I won't go that berserk, but I will do it for a full calendar year. So I'll do the 17th of March, 2023. What day of the week is that? A Friday, if you're interested. And then the last thing to do is click on the Advanced tab. And this is where you just confirm what sort of show this is. So if you'd created a pre-recorded version of your show, Stevie, that you wanted to play, come to Event Type, click Playlist, and then just choose that playlist here. So it's simply telling the software what playlist you want. So Rights Essential there, and this means I'm going to play this specific playlist for this time on Fridays every week for the next 12 months. And if I'm happy with that, I click on Create Event, give it a second, if that, and that's 12 months worth of content. It's also scheduled for today because that's when I originally selected it. But as of right now, it's going to be going every Friday for the foreseeable future. There we
I
go,
think
just moving
if you
across.
could click on that again, Phil, because I have a question that people might, because you want right into the playlist
Oh, yes.
choice on that. There's also a couple more options: the live DJ and live relay, and then of course overrun from there might be a question people will have.
Yeah, so overrun is essentially, I mean, how the software does, it's very regimented. So it will do pretty much whatever it's told. It's a software platform. So if you've scheduled a show to start from 2 till 4 in this example, but as it approaches 4 o'clock, the current track is still playing. It's halfway through a particular track that your closer. Of course, the software knows, well, this show's got to finish at 4. I'm going to fade it out. It's not going to abruptly finish it, but at 4 o'clock, it will fade it out so the next show can start. If you turn overrun on, what it would do is it will allow that currently playing track to finish. It will mean your next show might be running slightly late, but if it's a default playlist or just a general playlist in that sense, it doesn't really matter, I guess, if it starts a little bit late. It's arguably a bit better to play the last track in its entirety. Ideally, you want to build your shows as close to their times as you want.
That's what I meant with the live DJ. Usually nobody can hit the marks so the overrun feature on the live DJ tab people should probably turn that on maybe.
Well, to be honest, live DJ doesn't actually have an overrun option. It's a lot more regimented. It's like you've got to hit your times. But as the owner of the account, so obviously you're the owner of your account, Stevie, you would be able to go live past your time if you want to, because you're the owner, you're the head honcho, you do whatever you want. If I was doing a show and I was like, I'm really sorry, Steve, that was 5 minutes late, or I talked for a bit too long, can I just play the end of this last track?
You're done.
Yeah, right. Get out. You're never coming back. What you can do is you can actually extend shows. You can edit shows. You can, even while I'm doing a show, you could change the time of it. You could change the day. You could replace me with another DJ if I was doing that bad of a job. Replace it with yourself, and you could kick me off and put you on instead. But it will ultimately just finish at the time that it's been set to. The other options here, though, are with a live DJ, similar to a playlist, you just select who you want to go live on air instead of a playlist. So if I selected myself, that means I am going to go live during this show. If you try to go live, you wouldn't be able to, because the software is only expecting me, and therefore only I have the ability to go live. If I was if I was fearful of having any technical issues, or I was, you had no idea I was totally unreliable and I'm prone to missing shows, what you can do is any playlist you select here, so Rights Essential in this case, will be a backup playlist, and that will play in the event of there being a disconnection, so technical issue, or a no connection at all, like I'm late, or a legitimate emergency has held me up. So it means, because it's all cloud-based, we want your station to be on air 24/7, so there's no risk of it going to dead air. If there's been a disconnection, whether it was avoidable or unavoidable, the station's going to keep playing something. So whatever you select there will do the job. And then a live relay is, I guess, kind of good for if you were doing a sport-related station or show, or even news as well. This is great for syndicating content. So as a live relay, similar to when you're scheduling a show, you're scheduling a live feed from another online radio station. So here we've got an example, the Ryan Seacrest Show or the Howard Stern Show. They've been lovely enough to share with them their exclusive links. But if I wanted
Howard seems like such a generous person, doesn't he?
Yeah. So if they were like, Phil, go on, you are a top bloke, you can play my show without any repercussions on your station, I'd be like, thanks. And what you do is you can take their online feed and you would schedule it in the exact same way you would a show. It's just the only difference is, instead of playing a playlist of yours, you're playing a direct feed of their show. However, you have still kind of an advantage. If they go off air due to technical issues, they could be silent. If they go off air, it disconnects. what happens when there's a disconnection? Your backup place kicks in. So you, over Howard Stern, have arguably got a more reliable station, maybe in a way. So you're kind of insured, I guess. Any technical issues there?
Here's a quick question about that. So, like you said, if that happens, and also there's no dead air, you picked an overrun option on the song on the playlist in the previous two modules ago, I think. The overrun right there. I'm sorry. Now, if you have that overrun done, say what I want to do, like you want to go all the way, you want to have for a talk show, you want to live stream it through like Ecamm Live, or you want to do it through Switcher Studio, but you're going to do the radio show as you sit here as well to have the audio as well. What if you mistakenly, you have a 5-minute countdown timer, but it's 1:57 p.m. But the countdown timer has 5 minutes. So you're going to I'm going to wait. Does it, and then it's going to kick in, but at 2:03, say, or 2:02, that song's still playing. Will that overrun, or will the live override the overrun?
Yeah. Overrun only applies to your playlist. So any live shows, whether they, say someone's late or someone finishes early, or vice versa. The overrun just only applies to the playlist side of things. So so you'll be able to sort of manage them independently then.
Well, you can get around that too by saying the radio station has exclusive access even behind the scenes before we go on the air.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's 1:55, and if I get the countdown timer wrong, I can make up for it. You can be talking about a lot of things at once. So I was just seeing what takes hierarchy in those kinds of situations.
Yeah, live broadcasting always takes precedent over everything. So again, we have a news bulletin builder as well, which always plays at the top of any hour that you've specified to play a news, like an automated news feed. It only plays it during automated sections. It doesn't interrupt the live host. So a way of using that feature during live was you could schedule a DJ to go live between, in this example, instead of 2 till 4, you could go live 2 minutes past 2 till 3, and then schedule him again 2 minutes past 3 to 4 o'clock. And in between that time, it will then, because it's in the automated playlist section, it will play a news bulletin there. But if I'd scheduled a live DJ straight through, it wouldn't play. So in the case of all shows, the live host takes precedent, and it's top of the hierarchy in that sense.
I have to apologize. I won't do this when I have a radio station. My little cat wants to go outside. Hold on.
That's all right. Like I said, what I'll do next a little bit is just come to the listen tab. So in general, I mentioned, I think this a little bit earlier, is there are lots of different ways people can...
They're like children, they don't have any kind of boundaries.
No, that's all right. Like, neither does my daughter. So I think she's like a cat even. So So with his, it's kind of like one of the last things I'll go before we go to any questions. Is the listen tab. Obviously, the most important thing, Stevie. I've spent a lot of time thinking of these ideas, making these shows. But how on earth do people actually go ahead and then listen to them? First of all, there is this. This is a unique listen link. You can see I set it to a deliberately low bit rate there, so I can. That's actually FM bit rate there. You can improve it, of course. But this unique URL is something that's automatically generated, and when you share it with people, they just click on it, and it opens up a browser tab on their computer or their smartphone. I would honestly say it's not the most attractive way of people listening. It's an incredibly easy way of people listening, but it just does open up a black browser tab on their computer or their phone. There's no branding on there. It's just a play button. And of course, on the link, it says Radio.co in it, because we use this to kind of find your station on our server, so we know where your station is located in the case of any technical issues. But if you wanted something that's a bit more personal, which obviously I imagine you would, lots of different ways you can do it. One way, you could ignore that link and submit it to a number of internet radio directories, like Streamer, for example, sees millions of people using it every day. Or the one you're probably most familiar with, and that goes for everybody, is TuneIn. TuneIn is easily one of the most recognizable internet radio directories in the world. But they famously, a few years ago, stopped accepting new submissions to their database. They never really went into detail why. However, they've kind of broke their silence, and January, I believe, they launched a new service called TuneIn On Air. So whilst TuneIn used to be free, or at least it barely costs anything to be listed on there, if you want to be listed on TuneIn now, it's going to cost you about $1,000 a year if you want to be listed on there. They break it down. You pay basically by a quarter, so it works out maybe like $60 or $80 a month. But yeah, in total, about $1,000 a year if you want to be listed on there. Kind of with anything, any project like this, you got to spend a bit of money to hopefully then make money or get recognition in the future. Because it is so recognizable, some people have paid this and they have seen an increase in their listenership just because it's where people go to listen to radio. So it's an expense, but it may be integral to, the future of your station, maybe. But there are dozens and dozens of others that are free and still see a huge amount of traffic through, like Streamer, like Radio Garden is another one you may have heard of. And some of these have apps or they have ways of connecting people to a station that sounds a bit similar to another one that they're listening to. So there are benefits and to a lot of these directories. You don't always have to spend money to get that, but that's the other option there. Stevie, for you, would you imagine having your own website dedicated to your radio station?
Well, I have StevieRichardsFitness.com. So especially if it was the health and fitness, it would actually have a player. It would have a dedicated page that would look like a radio page with lineups and stuff like that. I think the best way to go if you're going to brand it all the way is use a website, and or I know Radio.co just started advertising an app coming up, having an app instead of even doing TuneIn. You could subscribe to the app, right, and have everything branded. Most people are carrying these around, so having an app downloaded to listen to video is the way to go. What's the price? I know James talked about that coming out in 2022. What's the update on that?
The apps, was that the new apps?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the new apps, so we're currently just scrubbing them up a little bit. They are sort of near completion. We don't have an official date for the launch yet. We are going to be sharing a few more details about them. I think sort of by the end of the month, so I'll have a bit more of a more reliable sort of timetable when they're going to be released. But they look super, super cool. They have the ability to obviously people can message you through the app. They can see your schedule. There's push notifications. It was a big recommendation for people. They really wanted the ability to remind people of shows and things coming on, so that's possible. And what I think is really good is if you did have a podcast and a radio station, as I recommended, you can have an RSS feed of a podcast on there as well, so you can actually have both of your brands available on the single app. So they're going to be really great. We're going to be showcasing a few of them, I think, in the coming weeks. So watch this space for them.
But this link here, or the copy of the embed link, will put up. Do you have any visuals of any images of like what it would look like on the website? Like, would it have art? There you go.
Yeah, so bit of a bad example here, because what it's doing is it's displaying a track or rather a recorded show that has no artwork attached to it. So if I just go back here and maybe change it, but what it would do is it will then typically display artwork for any music that you're playing. Like it's going to switch to Bob Marley in a moment.
For me, I would go to Squarespace, create a little module of like, we have a radio station. Check out our radio show live and on demand, and they click on that, and that should take them to the whole thing, right?
Yeah. So this will just work as obviously it can display artwork of any tracks you're playing, or like I said, voice tracks in this case. You could have a photo of a DJ of a particular show, a podcast that you're playing. But this is just nice, something that's a lot more visual to show off to people. You can obviously see the track information or show information. Artwork, you could just have the branding for your station throughout. There we go. It's a good example of the artwork there. But yeah, it takes literally about 30 seconds to build. Click on the add player button, answer a couple of questions, click on copy embed code, paste it onto your website, and then anyone who visits from there on in will see something a little bit like this. And obviously on the topic of apps as well, as the last thing is, as I said, currently, obviously these are our original apps, which still work incredibly well. They turn your station into a portable radio player, essentially, so people can listen to your station on the go from anywhere in the world. These are available usually at an extra monthly charge on top of the subscription plan, but they can be included in some of our higher end plans. But these are really great, and for people concerned about, hey, I don't know how to build my own website, or I don't know how to build my own mobile apps, well, neither do I. Don't know sort of how experienced Stevie is in mobile app developing. But yeah, you usually just follow our step-by-step guide. You follow the idea of your app, any details, what do you want it to be called, the artwork, bit of a garish artwork selection there, but it's a completely white labeled app. So it's not bombarded with Radio.co. It doesn't have any other station on. It's just purely yours.
It's
And
basically just an HTML5 app that doesn't really need to be submitted to the App Store, correct?
so this will be submitted to the App Store.
Oh,
So this is makes it easy for people to download. And like I said, our new apps will be available at a later date.
mm.
But something that's actually worth knowing is myself and my colleague Lucy, we did a webinar last month all about how to grow your listeners. So definitely something you should sort of check out on our YouTube channel. And one of the things we talked about is call to actions. Call to action, if you're unaware, is just basically saying visit our website or follow us on Instagram or something like that. The call to action that a lot of people tend to react to most is download our app, or you can find us on the App Store. And the reason being is they are likely listening to your station while from their phone, or they have their phone in their hand while they're listening to you. And even though we're finding an app, downloading it, opening it, installing it takes far more effort than actually just clicking on a link on a website. It's, dare I say, trendy to kind of have another app on your phone that's for a specific radio station. So even though it does come at extra cost, it's something you should very heavily consider for just increasing the accessibility and ease of people finding your station. So it's definitely something you should consider going forward.
I do have a couple questions, website-wise. When
Yes.
you're talking about the web players, is there an embed code to show your like channel guide, like the schedule?
Yeah. So
And on the app, do you get the same feature to be able to see, oh, I got, the A's Love Songs at 9 p.m. Eastern, and I got the wrestling show at 11 a.m. You know what I mean? So you can
yeah.
see what's going on.
Yeah, so on our new apps, there will be the ability to have your schedule available on there. For now, though, we do have a schedule widget, which is available here, and it works in the exact same way as that web player. You just decide the color scheme, how you want it to look. There we go. You can
Oh,
see all the
nice.
shows coming up. This can be a fixed size or a specific size. Obviously, color scheme, logos, details there. They can all be changed. You can have light mode and dark mode. But this is available on your website. And like I say, there will be a similar version of this.
Well, when it says what's on air, is that basically going to show you what's currently playing when you?
Yeah, I mean that was actually a bit of text that I created, so you can actually call this anyone. So Stevie's radio, something like that, and then that would appear instead there. So again, you can give it a bit of a customization, and obviously it's showing exactly what's on air right here, right now.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just things that if you have a website or if they decide to subscribe to your website or your app to be able to see, okay, here's the lineup for this week and this is what we have, and they can plan accordingly or just listen, on demand or whatever.
Yeah, that's it. It's just a good way of just always being available in your audience's eyes as well as obviously as they're listening to your show, but they want to know what's coming up and they want to know what they've got. Most importantly, to look forward to is going back to what we said, almost an hour ago, talking about, live radio being that thing that you can't miss, that event that I must listen to it because I can't listen to it on demand like my podcast. People know tomorrow at 9 a.m. we've got this particular show. They're going to tune in and listen to it. And that's kind of it. That's kind of it for the crash course in terms of the basics. So how you'd upload content and build shows and schedule them and get people involved. And obviously listening is the most important thing. There's a lot more detail that you can find on our website. I have a recorded demo as well, or you can visit our website or go to radio.co/book-a-demo and book a 30-minute call with me, and I can guide you in a bit more detail, show you how it all works. But in a nutshell, that's kind of how it looks, Stevie. So what's your thoughts then, Stevie? Obviously coming in, not really knowing or not being terribly confident in committing yourself to producing and managing your own station. How do you feel kind of now?
This is the software version of what the Rodecaster Pro did as a radio station hardware console. If that's a good analogy, how you used to have to plug your phone in and do this and try to use all these splitter cables and a telephone system from whatever company. It cost $5,000. This console here, sound pads, you literally had a cavalcade of stuff. So, And somebody had asked, and we'll get to the question. No, you don't have to go that far with a Rodecaster Pro and all these other things. But I'll tell you this, it is kind of like the Rodecaster Pro is the buy once, cry once, if you want a radio station, in my opinion. The Radio.co with the whatever you're looking at for subscription pricing is, yeah, it's monthly for what I'm looking here, but you also can piece it together in one converged service with an app, website, all this stuff. Or I can just take the lower tier, have my one show, and have one live radio show on a station. That's what I look at too when you're looking at the monthly cost of trying to figure it all out and trying to import and export and upload and download and do all this stuff. It's very attractive, and be able to take the existing stuff that I have right now in my workflow, talking about a website, YouTube channel, live streaming functionality, and plugging audio in like this. It's really nice. And this really has a nice clean interface, a nice clean kind of, it's not quite Android. It's a little more iOS in my estimation, even though it's got a very much an Android type of layout in the UI, but it's really nice. And
yeah,
I may have played with the software for 10, 15 minutes at the most. So what you're showing me is my first kind of formulation of what everything how it can be pulled together.
Yeah, and like I said, the idea is, with this radio station in a box, it's got everything, so you don't need to necessarily use things outside of Radio.co. You are more than welcome to with live music shows. If you don't have like a Rodecaster Pro or a desk with a music source into it, you can use DJ software to do the same job. But ultimately, if you just want to get your radio station up and running, whether it's a talk show, music show, kind of this is all the gear you would need. And equipment-wise, you need very, very little. Rodecaster Pro is a fantastic piece of equipment, but as Stevie, you just said then, there's no need to just immediately get, that's like a $500 piece of kit. You don't necessarily need something like that. My microphone, my Shure SM7B, cost me about £300. I only got it just because I wanted it, and I only turned 30 once, so I kind of sort of blew it all on that. So
baby, my God, I'm 50.
So just get find a budget that's comfortable with you. Just find something that works. You don't need to spend tons of money and break the bank to get started. Just as long as you've got that passion, that's the most important thing. You can't buy the passion to broadcast. So as long as you have that, you can absolutely do anything. But that kind of leads us to questions. So some of you have been asking questions in the chat box. We've answered a couple of them throughout. But what I'm going to do now is we've got some questions that were asked beforehand when we were advertising this session. Stevie, we invited people to ask questions.
Overtime, by the way.
No, it's all right. It's a pleasure. So let me just get my my slide here of a few questions. So these are ones that have been asked that were emailed in beforehand. So we will share those. Some of them I can answer. Some of them, Steve, I'm sure you've got experience in answering, particularly the bottom one. I haven't got a clue. So the first question was from Angela, and she has asked, what's the best computer and mic for a podcast or a radio channel, which kind of links nicely with what we were just talking about then. From a technical standpoint, computer-wise, as far as Radio.co is concerned, just an average Windows and Mac computer works wonders. It just comes down to a personal preference of what you like to use. I'm a Windows user personally. Are you Windows on Mac, Stevie?
No, I actually got the 24-inch M1 iMac here, which I was going to make a point about that. I'm very much a Mac person, so this is good that we have opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, that just comes with just years and years of never really understanding the keyboard shortcuts of Macs, but we have them in the office. That's why I've kind of enjoyed working from home, because I've been able to use stuff I'm comfortable with. But mic-wise, again, we all have our preferences. Like I said, I swear by the Shure SM7B here. Stevie, do you have a one that you firmly stand by, or have you found it, I guess, difficult to find a microphone that works for you?
Yeah, well, that's the thing with my unique vocal characteristics. Like, I'm on a Sennheiser 416 because my wife is a voiceover artist, and I actually turned in the SM7B because I sound pretty dark. I have a much deeper voice. So what I would say is probably the SM7B or the RE20, even the Lewitt LCT 440 Pure, very quiet microphones, different price ranges, but you want something. I have a bunch of walls, so you want something that's not that reflective. Now, Angela asked an excellent question, and I mentioned the iMac because the M1 iMac actually has a 3 microphone array. So if you have an M1 iMac or one of the updated Macs, you might get away with actually the built-in microphone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite the quality of what we have here or the off-access rejection, but you're talking about in the quality. I'm on the face cam webcam right now, which looks just a little bit worse than like my Sony camera.
Hmm.
But it's all converged. It's not a ton of wires. So that
Yeah.
Angela or somebody else, if they have a good built-in mic. Now, if you're talking about USB, God, you can go for ATR 2100 was the podcasting go-to for about $50 to $70. The best part about the 2100 is it's USB and XLR.
Yeah.
And comes with a mic stand and a windscreen. I mean, it's everything. You plug it in your computer. That would be the one I would tell anybody to start a radio station with.
Yeah, and it's things like, again, a popular one amongst podcasts, things like the Blue Yeti microphone is good. There's versions of that have both USB and XLR as well, so you can sort of carry it on with you.
The only reason I would go against that is because that's a condenser versus the dynamic of the 2100.
Yeah, and like obviously
That's the only reason. Yeah.
Yeah, I find dynamics a lot more because again, I have quite a deeper voice, but I like being able to hear the full sort of bassiness of it. That's why I prefer sort of like a nice mic like this. But the mic I had at first was the original Rode NT USB before they did the USB Mini last year. So that was my first, I guess, sort of professional microphone. And my co-hosts, when I do my podcasting, they've got Shure microphones. I forgot the exact type, just a standard kind of like vocal microphone.
Like the SM58s.
The 58s, I think.
57s, the $100 mics.
Yeah, so they were there. I think when I picked them, about 80 or 100 quid a pop and stuff. But they were sort of really, really good. So it's just finding one that you are comfortable purchasing and one that you think gets a good sound for your voice. Experiment with. I'm blessed the fact that I've been able to test microphones through my time at Radio.co. So I found one that I like. But like we've done, Stevie, just find ones that suit you best, and until you're happy, I guess.
I think the strength, what we're talking about here, obviously, because you work for the company, but the strength is in your delivery method and your uptime and the ease of getting your radio show out there. So the hardware, in a way, unless you're really OCD like us, the hardware is actually just a close second to the actual getting the entire station up type deal.
Yeah. Like I said, but I mean, we have a ton of resources. Like I said, we do a lot of reviews.
Guys, by the way, I don't work. Not yet, at least.
Not yet. Especially not yet. But like I said, we do a ton of reviews, ton of guidance. So if you're unsure of any equipment or microphones, there's a ton of stuff out there. I also used to watch before I bought this a YouTube channel called Podcastage, and he does some really great in-depth microphones, audio interfaces. I got a mic processor and my mixing desk, all based on recommendations and technical reviews of that. So that's a good shout out for me anyway. Shimmy has asked, how do I...
I know Bandrew. He's a good YouTuber.
Oh, do you? Oh, awesome.
Well, not personally, but I know
okay.
We've communicated back and forth. I would say too, like, look at some people that are in an untreated space too. That's just my thing, because most people aren't going to have acoustic treatments or have the knowledge of how to treat stuff. So
yeah, no, I agree there. Shimmy has asked, how do I attract paying advertisers to our station? Obviously, it's difficult to say what will guarantee a sponsor attracting to your station, but I guess my advice is think very, very local to begin with. So even if you think your station has global appeal, the best businesses to attract when starting out is kind of like local businesses. So offer them cheap, irresistible rates and develop that partnership. So then maybe a year down the line, months down the line, they can up the price of what they're giving you because you gave them something really, really cheap to begin with, because after all, you're a growing station. One thing, again, I discussed this in the webinar last month, something that's kind of changed in the landscape of advertising with radio is the old adage used to be that advertisers only care about listeners. And whilst arguably that's still true, it's not the only way to monitor a station's worthiness. So having a very active social media presence can be just as important. So a good way of thinking about it is, if you've got hundreds or thousands of people listening, are they the audience for this business that you want to attract? They could be overseas. You could have one audience listener that's actually going to benefit from this advert campaign. You could have 20 listeners for your station, but they are all sharing, liking, commenting everything that you're doing. And ultimately, it's those people who are going to be attracting the business of these companies, because they're the local audience and they are the ones, I guess, sort of interacting with you the most. So I'd say it's still important, I guess, to have listeners. So you should wait a couple of months maybe before you do try and attract businesses. But the thing that you can do first and right from the off is building that social media presence and getting that that audience sort of following you sort of every step of the way. That's sort of my take on that.
I have a different take on that. I think it might be a little bit more of a recipe of consistent success for Shimmy and other people out there. My YouTube channel, when I started reviewing home gym equipment, fitness equipment, it was born out of like trying to get the actual equipment through companies for review or paying at a discount, doing other things for the opportunity to get affiliate status with these companies. So basically, I have forceusa.com/Stevie. I have Diamond. I try to get the vanity URL/Stevie because that's most radio stations have this website/Stevie, or click the radio icon, which is just an icon that takes you to the affiliate link. Affiliate income is a lot more steady, and you have a lot more control to make unlimited income because it's based on converting sales. They don't have any money put into it. If you make them more money, you make yourself more money, and you don't have to specifically tie yourself to one company or brand for a month, 2 months. You can take your top 3 or 4 that you really love and you use, and it's easy to be an evangelist for them and put your spots of whatever.com/Shimmy or whatever the show is, excuse me. But that's the way to do it. With advertisers, Phil, you have a great point about local, and we never mentioned this because I live in a beach town. Very blessed to live in a beach town. Very local, very like supporting local businesses. That we even have a beach radio station that's on the pier that all the local businesses invest in. If her show or his show it is a local show covering local events, and because we talked about this worldwide thing, but maybe you just want the public access style local radio show where you'll have 5,000-10,000 listeners because everybody in the town will listen to your morning show. Now you can address the local businesses for your station because your demographic is local, and you guys actually have reports that show where people are listening, how many. The stats are very useful.
Yeah, and on like affiliate links and stuff, James does a great video kind of expanding on that, about, that's another sort of source of income which can work wonders for people. And so one thing as well on sort of lost my thought then on sort of local business. It might come back to me, but it's good to kind of get out and about in events, and once you've brought that sort of local sort of relationships with everyone, then you can expand, but kind of focus on your content and your presence and your brand, and then you can sort of grow that sort of
naturally. And the other thing I would say too is when you do, and I've learned this, when you I write emails like I wrote to you, and when I wrote the email about collaboration or seeing if we can do any kind of business collaboration, it was literally about what hopefully I could offer to Radio.co. It wasn't like, hey, give me this, which most people do, right? When you contact an advertiser, tell them how you can help their business and how you want to help their business and what you like about it. They don't just actually use the business or research it. Don't just go in looking for money. Go in looking to serve them.
That's it. It's very much like, again, just a few weeks ago, quite relevant, like an episode of The Apprentice. They're always talking about like what profits they can make, but they don't spend enough time getting to know the people who are actually. So, great. Yeah. Money at the end of the day is the most important thing, but you've got to build that rapport. You've got to show that you actually have care and sincerity with products and businesses. So, kind of don't be a robot, essentially be a human being at the end of the day. Reese asked a question which you'll have a bit more of an idea on this than me, Steve, is how can I broadcast a radio show with video potentially on like YouTube and website? Because you do this with your shows, so don't you?
Yeah, I would love to actually. I'm going to incorporate Radio.co in this hopefully in the future because I have for my Mac, Ecamm Live, for iOS, Switcher Studio, and then a standalone box, the Yo Box Pro, which will combine the video, and you can put comments up on all three of those. You can stream to multiple platforms at once. So you could be streaming to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch as you're doing the radio show, and you're getting all the stuff for clips and shorts and stuff like that on YouTube. So software wise, you're probably better off if you have a Mac, Ecamm Live. If you have Windows, OBS is free, but it's also a little bit of a learning curve.
Yeah.
iOS, you would have to obviously still be connected to a Mac or PC computer to run Radio.co live and get all that. So I would suggest you look at your operating system, see if you're on Windows, try OBS. It's completely free. And then what I would also do is just make sure that you have some sort of hardware recorder backup of the audio if you want to squeeze out a little bit of better quality, or you just have the card there. You can upload it straight to iTunes or whatever, Podbean, whatever you're using, or podcast.co. How's that? That would probably be better for this webinar. But yeah, videos are stressful, as I said, being on camera, but some services out there are pretty good. Of course, mostly everything out there is subscription based except for OBS. So that's what I would tell you to do.
Cool. There we go, Reese. Freddie's asked again another question that you'll have a better idea than me. So can I charge people for my station like on Patreon or something similar? I mean, we have a guide for a company that we've sort of used in the past called DDP, I think Digital Delivery Products, I think. But we have a guide on there to show you how you can kind of place your station behind like a paywall or something like that. From your own experience, Stevie, sort of, have you got better insight into how that could potentially work?
Russo's got a good model, but Russo also has decades of wrestling, and he also has 10 to 12 different shows with personalities that he's paying. So he has overhead. So there's a value for value model with that and for the subscriptions. Also, he has to pay for bandwidth and storage, which obviously with Radio.co, you get like depending upon your plan, you're really, the ceiling's pretty high. What I would do, Freddie, if I were you, is use the radio station as a freemium model where you're offering free, you get the listeners, then determine, what's the premium content that you can offer strictly on Patreon. Maybe it's video, maybe it's something, maybe it's a special interview. Use the radio station as sort of the infomercial to try to convert affiliate sales, sponsorships, and even anything. You have to look at it honestly. Like, I honestly don't know if I have anything from a premium subscription model that I could offer to my audience outside of the very soft sell of, hey, I use this gym equipment. It's really good. I review it every month or two, and maybe you'll like it. Here's my affiliate link. You save a little bit of money. I make a little bit to support the channel. Also, Patreon is a grind. So you have to work smart. If you have a full radio station, Freddie, you have to look and see, do I want to create more passive income through affiliate sponsorships? People use my Amazon link to just shop, or do I want to create 2 times more work for myself and then people may not subscribe?
Yeah. And other ways that for one of my podcasts, I use Ko-fi. So, KO-FI, that's not, I don't have to provide a premium content if I don't want it. That's just asking people, hey, if you would like to donate the price of a cup of coffee, $3 or something like that, that's a nice little thing just to take off a bit of the bill, like, to kind of make the radio station a bit more sort of even. So if people are willing to just spend a couple of dollars, imagine if a lot of your listeners did that, they're just donating a small amount of money, but that obviously all builds up. So, it's sort of other things to do there. But
there's another thing people can do. And this is something I may experiment with on the video end of it. If you're doing video as you're doing your Radio.co station, there's a blueprint where most hosts will talk and say, remember, at the end of the show, we're going to be reading super chats. So the super chat or the Twitch bits, you're going to read questions and answer them at the end of the show, but people are donating to get a specific question answered or get a specific kind of comment read. It seems to work for a lot of different shows I watch. That way you're not clogging it up and stopping like we're doing here, even though I took you off the rails in the beginning answering questions. You can get the content in your produced time. And then at the end, you can kind of freestyle, look at the questions, and you're also generating a little bit of money for your brand.
Yeah. So there's so many different ways you can do it. Like say James goes into some good detail about it. Obviously, some incredibly insightful sort of advice there from Stevie about different ways of doing it. It's a case of finding out what works for you. But yeah, the definite way with doing something like Patreon is, as you said there, Stevie, is do I have the ability to offer something more? And if I do, use that radio station as a way of directing people to it. Hey, it could be a way to turn your station into podcast. Hey, did you miss the start of the show? Don't worry, if you donate $3 a month for Patreon, you can get the on-demand version of it. Things like that. You just got to see if what you have to offer is worth it, and can you keep it up? Can you keep delivering sort of monthly content and things? Adeco, sorry, as to, does my station have to be on air 24/7? No, not at all. As I mentioned earlier, you could have it so it gives off the impression it's on and off, or you do actually turn it on and off. At the end of the day, it's your station. We give you the freedom to allow you to manage it in whatever form you want. So it's up to you what you find best and most comfortable. It can kind of work to your advantage in a way. So if you wanted to only be on air for one show, one unmissable show once a week, then that means you can arrange all of your promoting for the station to focus on that one show. You don't have to say, on Mondays we're doing this, Tuesdays, Wednesdays. Well, you could just say on Friday 9 till 11, I'm back with the 80s love song show, things like that. So you can, if you wanted to do just one show, it can work to your advantage. It can streamline a lot of your promoting. Or if you are broadcasting 24/7, you can still do that and just focus a lot of your marketing on one or two shows. So no, as far as Radio.co is concerned, you don't have to be 24/7 at all. The ability is there, but yeah, absolutely not pressured to.
I think the number one word you need to, if whatever content creator you are, but a radio station, radio show, podcast, Patreon, YouTube, scaling, scale everything within your comfort level. Because the worst thing that can happen is when this becomes a job, but you're not making any money, kind of work into it. It's got to be born out of joy, and then trying to scale it to where you can. Don't do all. I would start out, if you're going to start out with a radio show, just start out with the radio show. When people demand more content, maybe more shows, maybe Patreon. When people want to see video or a produced product, expand the YouTube. Then explore a super chat type thing with your YouTube channel.
Yeah, and advice I always give to people looking to launch their station. So pick a date you want to launch a station. So I don't know, May 1st, something like that. Scale that back maybe 2 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe at a push, and soft launch your station. So maybe do a very quick mock show, or just have a looped playlist playing content. Constantly on loop. Just has to be an hour or two, but you've got something that you can actually bring to people to promote your station. There's no point saying, listen to my station on May the 1st. You can expect to hear this, that, and the other. Why don't you just say, tune in when we launch on May the 1st. This is what you can listen to. And it's just kind of like a little demo reel. It doesn't have to be long at all. So that's kind of like that as well, rather than just going out with a bang and trying to launch all your bells and whistles all at once. Why don't you just say, the station's going to be playing 80s love songs, but this is one particular show I'm proud of. So I'm going to particularly concentrate all my marketing and spend 2 to 4 weeks developing that initial debut show, and then I know I've got something that I can then parade around with me. So yeah, good advice, just to take your time and really take a little step back to find out what's most important when getting on air. And the last asked question here, obviously one I can't answer, Stevie, is who's your favorite wrestler and who has inspired you the most? And that's from Neil.
I'm assuming that's like my favorite wrestler when I was growing up.
I guess, or just in general, someone who you've worked alongside. Or
I don't really watch the shows that much, unless I have to. There's lots of people. I mean, obviously, I would say currently, just because of longevity, durability, and the fact that he works a style that he's one of the guys I worked a lot on house shows, and then his first match on Raw is Randy Orton. Just what Randy Orton can bring, the uniqueness, and the fact the guy's been in the company for 18, 20 years at this point, consistently on top or in, higher middle top. that's inspirational to me. He's been able to make money, keep himself fairly healthy, and still arguably more over than he's ever been.
Yeah.
So but growing up, it was the Ric Flairs, the Dusty Rhodes, on the NWA side. Then WWE was obviously Hogan, Savage, and for some reason, Shawn Michaels always, even though people say I look like him, and I got the Stevie kick, of course, it wasn't a reason initially because he was in the AWA in Minnesota as the Midnight Rockers with Jannetty before they went to WWE. And maybe it was just his style, his athleticism, or even just a slight resemblance at the time. He really just spoke to me. Now, athletically, I found out real quick I couldn't do the stuff he could do when I started my career. But there's lots of guys that inspire me now. Like Matt Morgan is the mayor of Longwood here in Florida. I'm more inspired now by the guys that transcended wrestling, or their legacy is beyond wrestling. Glenn Jacobs is the mayor of Knox County. Here's a little something for your viewers right now. I've considered over the past 2 to 4 years trying to run for our local office. Wow. Because I want to serve the community, and I approach my content that way. I want to serve the audience. That's probably a message everybody here should keep in their mind when they create a radio station. But the success stories outside of wrestling, much like outside sports, Hollywood, when people do better or they're healthy, they're not tragedies. I tend to concentrate a lot on those.
Yeah.
When there's life after something you put your mind, heart, body, and soul into, and you feel like there's life after that, that's special. Most people don't feel that way, and it sucks.
Yeah, yeah. And I kind of still going back like the wrestling sort of angle there. I mean, obviously, I mentioned at the top introducing you about the character when you're in sort of right to center and stuff was my first introduction to you. I mean, how was that sort of time or that character or that work that you were doing? How do you sort of reflect on that?
My whole career, this is where you're going to know, okay, he's a skinny kid from Philadelphia. It's like somebody else did it, because I'm not that person. And when my wife laughed because she went to one of the independent shows a few years ago and I was me, but then when my music hit at the curtain, my look changed, and I don't know what it is. And it could be because we're all insane or we got split personalities, but I reflect back on those, and the only regret that I have, and it's probably a message for people starting their own radio station, because that's why they're all here. You have to enjoy the process. I didn't get to enjoy. I was in towns like your country for like a day, this country for like a day, but I never even looked around and said, well, God, somebody paid for my plane ticket so I could fly to England. Somebody could, I could go to Germany, go here. I'm getting to do. And I always realized what I was doing was a blessing, but I never really got to enjoy it because sometimes the politics and the personalities, the injuries, which were with me, probably my claim to fame being injured, but the injuries and just the general wear and tear on everything. But looking around, it's like, wow, I absolutely completely chose to do this. And I had those revelations many times, but it never gave me, like, if you're creating your radio station like these people are, and you're like, oh God, I can't figure out what to talk about. It doesn't just, you're doing it. Relax. Yeah. You have a method of delivery. You have at least an idea of a category. Go with it. Start recording. Start going live. It's never going to be perfect. If you're waiting for it to be perfect, don't ever start a radio station.
Yeah.
Or anything in your life, because it won't be. But I'm here to tell you that, like, the screw ups and how bad things could be in the beginning, you'll laugh at those and you'll enjoy the fact that you put yourself out there and grow as a person.
Yeah, and you can take that experience with you and even sort of extend that. Saying if you were to run for local office, you have that. I guess that broadcasting ability to be able to talk to people, to kind of not shy away with, as you say, things being necessarily perfect. You can just approach yourself as this human being, just talking, with charisma, with confidence. So
that's why my wife says I'll get assassinated. So you're gonna tell the truth, and that'll be it.
But obviously, incredibly sort of insightful things. Obviously, not just wrestling, but in general, your sort of passion and your very clear idea on what makes a radio broadcaster, which is obviously really, really, really insightful and interesting for me, Stevie. So thank you very much for answering those. Obviously, we have gone drastically. I don't think I've ever done a webinar this long, but
I'm
obviously
sorry about that. That's my fault.
it's been an absolute pleasure. We'll probably spend the next sort of just a couple of minutes or so, just answering a couple of questions that have been asked in the live chat that we haven't got to already. So I know you have been sort of waiting very patiently. Thank you so much. So we've got a question from Sherry Lynn Pierce Simpson asks, I'm interested in launching a radio talk show involving healthcare and mental health issues, along with co-hosts. Will I be able to have call-ins during airplay from listeners during the live show?
No, stay out of my space and category. No, see, that's the other part of me from wrestling. No, I'm kidding. She'll probably do it much better than I will. Go ahead.
Yeah, so obviously with Radio.co, like, it's we don't have specifically a live call feature. We have that talk show which you can record pre-recorded talks, of course. But if you want to do anything live, a great way of doing it that a lot of people see doing is, you've, again, going back to you, Steve, you've got that Rodecaster Pro. Why not use, preferably, I guess, not your own contact details, but even things like you could use as like a burner phone, just connect that and have people call that. Or, people can just call a phone that's plugged into a desk or connected via Bluetooth, get them on air, fade them in, get them on Skype, get them on. A good actually tip for audio quality is if you do want to do callers, try and use WhatsApp if you can, because WhatsApp produces a really good high quality sound, obviously a lot higher quality than a typical phone call. So if you want to get the idea of people calling in live, use WhatsApp. You'll get a nice sort of crystal clear sound. So that's a way that you can do it with the platform. Again, when you're broadcasting live, the software just allows you to broadcast whatever you want from that device you've chosen. So whatever's connected to it, it'll broadcast. So whether it's a phone or a tablet you use, or you use a software equivalent, something like Audio Hijack. Again, if you're a Mac user using something like that, inject a live caller on Skype or Zoom that is on your computer, bring them into your live feed. But there is that pre-recorded option there for you. So yes, absolutely. It may just require a little bit of equipment or a little bit of software to do it. But yeah, absolutely. If you want to get live calls involved, it's more than easy enough to get started. It's not been an asked question, but obviously it's been a hot topic for us, Steve, is on the topic of licensing. So I'll sort of kind of clear a couple of, I guess, sort of general inquiries about licensing. So how it generally works is if you want to play copyrighted material like 80s love songs, ideally you want to have a broadcast license in place, as it just gives you the legal thumbs up to play what you want. Now, it sounds a lot simpler than it actually is. Not because it's necessarily difficult to get hold of, mainly because the people that have the answers to your questions make their answers as clear as mud. There's, particularly if you're broadcasting from the US, there are 4 different organizations you could work with, all charging different costs, all covering different things, all having different unique regulations. Because we don't currently offer it, although we are hoping to in the future, there's no estimated, there's no ETA on that. It's something we're just hoping to in the future. But, if you're on the thinking about licensing, just reach out to those companies individually and just see what they can offer you. Prices can start from $250 a year, could be $1,000 a year. It can ultimately depend on what it is you want to broadcast, how, where, when. It's just something we personally can't offer you. That's all. We can point you in the right direction, but we don't enforce licensing on you. It's just something, as you know, Stevie, we just strongly recommend. That's all it's something that you consider doing.
Oh, they're going to get you. Don't worry. But also, don't they change? You don't know when the songs are going to expire, and there's like a yearly. So the song you're playing on your station in December of 2021 and January 2022 is not there anymore. So it's always a moving, fluid thing that you have to constantly keep track of. It seems like.
Yeah, and with licensing, sometimes their licenses don't cover you January to December. Sometimes you could pay for a license and their license period is like April to next April. So you could end up paying $500 and it only covers you for 3 months, and then you've got to pay $500 again for a year. So there are, just always make sure that you're covered correctly. Maybe you're launching your station at a different time. Something just to consider, but you'll ultimately want to speak to these organizations sort of directly. Someone has asked, I can't remember the name. So praising fanatic asks, when broadcasting playlist and live talking, is there a method to remove the delay? When it comes to delaying, that's the latency delay. It's caused by how long it takes for your live signal to go to your hosting server, move to the streaming server, and then reach your listeners. All that process takes, on average, 10 to 15 seconds. It can be more. It kind of just varies greatly depending on network strength, location, a couple of different factors like that, bit rate as well sometimes. On average, it's 10 to 15 seconds. It is unavoidable, unfortunately, due to the nature of internet radio, unless you invest heavily on your own servers and different sort of streams. But when you're playing, maybe sort of where you're going here is when you're broadcasting content live, avoid using the playlist that you've uploaded because they are hosted on a different server to where you're streaming to. So if you say, I'm going to play Bob Marley as I did before, press play on my Radio.co account, there will be a huge delay there due to the nature of how it's built. So when you're broadcasting live music, always use content on your live device and it will just, there'll be no delay then.
Tip. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so when you're pressing play on a file or pressing play on something when you're live, yeah, it's just instant. Don't use anything that you've uploaded to Radio.co. That should just be used for automated and playlists. Charles has asked, can I play music videos with your software or only audio? Just audio. Unfortunately, obviously, Stevie, you mentioned about a couple of different ways to do video content. We as a company have actually considered maybe doing a way to potentially stream content to like YouTube or Facebook Live, video content. Discussions haven't really gone further than initial ideas, but it may be a service that we offer in the future. Again, no ETA on it, but if we want to be the go-to place for everything to do with broadcasting. If that includes, can we do video as well? We'll implement it as much as possible. So that is something. Again, watch this space. It may be something we implement, next year or something like that.
Like I want to get double sued or something. Like you want to get sued for the video, the music video, and the audio.
And so the last question that we'll sort of answer here is from don't know a specific name. It says Midnight Writer News Show with ST Patrick. So I assume this is ST Patrick I'm speaking to. If we do a music station, where does it broadcast to? I saw today that TuneIn was almost $300 per quarter, as I mentioned before, with the TuneIn on air. Spotify and Apple would not air it because of the music. Is the only option to embed onto a website. As I covered sort of during the demo, there's a few different ways you can broadcast. If you have your own website, embed it on there. Spotify and Apple only enlist radio stations that they've created, ones that they've actually made themselves. If you want to get your content on there, it has to be strictly a talk-based podcast or a show. That's the only way you can get things on things like Spotify and such. TuneIn obviously is an internet radio directory. It's the most well-known one. That's why because it's so desirable. That's why they're charging such an extortionate rate for it. But there are dozens and dozens available that you can submit to completely for free. We have a guide, actually, if you go to our help center, help.radio.co, type in internet or directory, and you'll find a list of about 35 or maybe close to 40 different directories you can submit to. Some of them are more well-known and more used as others. There's no necessary need to be available on all of them, but the option is there to list. It can't hurt basically to enlist on all of them. The trick really with internet radio or podcasting as well is you want to make it as easily available, as accessible as possible. So, submit it to all those internet radio directories, have a website, create your own mobile apps, create your own Alexa skill. You want people to type in something related to your station or your station name, and on that Google page, they find your Facebook page. They find a link to 3 different directories. They see your app on the Google Play Store. You want to make your station as widely available as possible, and you can do a lot of those things for free. So like having your own website. You have to build it initially, but you can have it on there as long as you want. Directories, do networking on Facebook and Twitter, get people sharing things like that. So someone's just asked a question, very, very related. It's just come in there. The real DJ Smooth. I can't link my Facebook page to my app. Is there an easy way to do it? You can actually, might be just misunderstanding it here, just while I close. But you can actually have your web player available on your Facebook page as well. Facebook is a great alternative to having a website. It effectively works as a headquarters for your station. You can embed a web player on there, but you have to have a fan page, and your fan page has to have at least 2,000 fans, I believe. No problem for you, Stevie. I'm sure you'll just be able to embed it as many times over. But you have to have at least 2,000 fans
You
before you
make
can
so many
embed.
kind assumptions. I'm not really a big fan of Facebook or social media in general, but we have to use.
Yeah, but like it's something you can embed like third-party players like Radio.co on a Facebook page. You just have to follow their certain criteria, really. Well, that kind of wraps up. We've been chatting for almost 2 hours. It's been I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope everyone has enjoyed it throughout. It's been great just to obviously discuss the platform with you, Stevie. Ask a couple of questions, because I came in here initially thinking like, my God, this is Stevie Richards, the wrestler, but I'm leaving here now going, this is Stevie Richards, the broadcasting nerd, if you don't mind me saying. So he's so knowledgeable and so passionate about broadcasting, and it's been a real pleasure. I've got so much more out of this than initially sort of going in. So I want to say thank you so much for just sharing your passion, your knowledge, your experience in all things radio and podcasting. And it's just been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Oh, thank you. One quick thing. I just left this out because you were talking about the passion for broadcasting, but it was born out of necessity because if you hear my voice, it's not my original voice. I have a vocal implant. I lost my voice. One of my vocal cords was damaged and paralyzed when I had neck surgery back in 1997. And podcasting and doing audio, that's why I've had trouble finding a mic, because my voice is so hard to kind of narrow down to a microphone. But I started it as my physical therapy because I couldn't afford vocal therapy. I didn't have insurance being a wrestler. So I turned what I thought was a curse into a blessing, and it became a passion for broadcasting. So I see in the chat here, and let's just turn it to these people because the webinar is about them, about teaching them about if they want to start their own radio station. Mostly what I see is fear, anxiety, doubt. Those all things are much more terrifying than damaged vocal cords, but also there's no limiting factor, whether your voice doesn't work correctly, whether this voice, which I still don't recognize to this day, I still use it. When you have fear and anxiety and you have all that stuff and you overcome it, you become an inspiration to someone else that has the same fear, anxiety, and doubt. And maybe your radio station is about fear, anxiety, and doubt. Think about that, how you can turn a negative into a positive, and just do it. Just somebody said, dive right in. That's exactly what you have to do.
Yeah. That's it. No worries. Head first. Just, like I said, that, I mean, obviously inspirational in myself. If you you've just got to do it. If it's something you have passion for, again, that's something that can't be purchased. It can't be learned. It's just something you have. So use that to your advantage. Just go ahead, even if it's daunting. Launching your own station is daunting. It's, licensing is daunting. What equipment, what microphone do I want to use? It's all terrifying. But the way you overcome it is just go, this is something I want to do. I'm just going to do it because there's a need for me. People would like to hear me. People may want to listen to my music. I want to provide a service to these people, even if it is just one person that's going to listen. I'm going to make sure I'm the darn best broadcaster to that one audience that I possibly can.
Here's the thing. It may suck. As a matter of fact, it probably will suck at first, but how are you going to get better?
Exactly.
Doing it.
There you go. It kind of goes back to some, I mean, I'm sure this is very, very similar. So you've got a much more impressive thing, but, I used to work as a children's entertainer many, many moons ago. And that was like, entertain these kids, entertain these parents as if there's 1,000 people listening. Doesn't matter if there's just one, So, of course, you've got a much more cooler sort of background and analogy than me, I'm sure, but it still works the same.
I've wrestled in front of two people many, many times. WWE wasn't drawing that great at the end when I was there.
No, like I said, thank you so much again, Steve. It's been a pleasure just chatting with you about all things broadcasting, wrestling, just presenting music, radio. Is there anything else that you wanted to ask or sort of share with anybody?
No, I really appreciate the time, and this for me personally and selfishly it's put me over most of the doubt and fear and anxiety that I have too. No one will listen. What am I going to talk about? Do I even know? There's people out there that know more than me on that might be better. All these things this session has chipped away at a lot of that to overcome and finally take that step.
Yeah. No, well, I said thank you once again. Thank you for everyone joining us. Obviously, it's been a long one, but I hope you have really enjoyed it. If you missed any of this, you can find it again on demand. You'll just find it on as soon as we wrap up here. It'll be available to stream on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you are. Thank you so much for the questions asked beforehand and live. If you have any questions, any anxieties, any issues, concerns, please send me an email, studio@radio.co. I can help with as much as possible, answer any questions, and ultimately, drive away this anxiety, this fear of launching your own station and helping you as much as I possibly can. And is there any particular place they can reach you, Stevie, for advice or just to chat with you? Where can people find you?
The main interaction is my YouTube channel. You just search Stevie Richard. You'll see the blue avatar that looks a lot younger than me. And the blue shirt, I should say. It's not completely blue, but most of my videos go up there. And obviously look out, and we'll see where I'll be in the internet radio station space, whether it's my own, which I'm embedding at StevieRichardsFitness.com, or if I have an iOS app, you'll be able to follow that. I'll be announcing that stuff on the YouTube channel.
Yeah. So watch this space. Right to Sensual is coming to a pair of earphones near you.
On OnlyFans.
Thanks again, Stevie. And like I said, if you need to get in touch at all, send me an email, studio@radio.co. But whatever you're doing, take care, everybody. And happy broadcasting.
Starting a radio station has never been easier. Click here and I'll take you to a free guide which shows you exactly how you can start a radio station with minimal fuss, no technical headaches, plus also start getting those all-important listeners. How does that sound? Click here and I will take you to my free guide.